Hello, I'm Bob Monks, and this is a program about the Brentwood Alcohol Recovery Home and its director, Father Paul Charbonneau. He's been working with alcoholics for over 20 years with great success. I went there in October 1983 because my life was a mess. I thought I'd stay a couple weeks, dry out, and then go back to my old ways. But I found out that if I wanted to be really happy, I had to start living in a new way. This is a show for a mature audience. It's a serious look at a serious problem. Please stay tuned.
I'm Dennis Reynolds, and I'm an alcoholic. I can remember the empty feeling, the searching, just something missing. There's something wasn't there. I was missing something in my life, and it was here. I found it here. I feel good today. People would, I'd be getting on my motorcycle out of the bar, and I couldn't walk. And people would say, don't get on it, you're going to kill yourself. And I would say, yeah, with any luck. And that's just the way I felt. I just wasn't happy. And in 13 weeks, it's impossible to turn that around. But they've given me the tools. They've told me what the problem was.
In the past 11 years, over 3,600 men have graduated from the Brentwood Alcohol Recovery Home. This scene is repeated every Saturday morning. Dozens of families starting new lives on the road to freedom from alcoholism. Brentwood treats around 200 men at a time in their 3-month program and is one of the most successful treatment centers in North America. Before I came to Brentwood, I thought it was a place where you came to dry out. A bunch of old guys sitting around with red eyes and 25-cent overcoats. A bunch of drunks and losers. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I would come here. Well, I did. I came here 2 years ago. What did I find? I found out that Brentwood is not a drunk tank. It's a school. It's full of interesting, creative, funny guys. And I found out about alcoholism. I found out that I am an alcoholic. Hi, my name's Bob. I'm an alcoholic. For the next hour, we're going to take you on a tour of the Brentwood Alcohol Recovery Home. We're going to show you what an alcoholic looks like, how he walks, how he talks, what it was like before he came here and what it's like now. Even if you're not an alcoholic, I think you'll find this hour interesting and relevant. You'll discover they do not talk about alcohol here. It's a non-topic. They don't talk about cirrhosis of the liver and beer and wine and how to make a gin and tonic. They talk about being honest and open, and they try to teach these guys how to be happy. They tell them that they have a disease called alcoholism and that there is no cure, but there is a treatment, and the treatment is another alcoholic. Two alcoholics talking to each other. That's what this place is all about. Stay with us for the next hour. I think you'll enjoy it.
Young man, do as you're told, from morning till night, and you'll be all right. You're young and have a lifetime to live. Get out of yourself and live a full life. Time is short and on your side. Find love in your heart and freedom from the inside you. I am old and have lost my pride. I've allowed myself to die inside. Resentments of old have crushed my soul, and my story cold has not been told. Time is short and on your side. Find love in your heart and freedom from the inside you.
The first night that I spent here was like trying to recover from the first day. It was trying to adjust to it, but boy, it was like, what am I doing here? And scared and like, who are all these strange people, and how the hell is this going to help me, you know? A lot of confusion, a lot of fear, you know.
Brad Brophy, age 32, postal worker. Been married twice. He's the father of a 9-year-old boy. When he came here, he did not think he was an alcoholic. He just came for some direction. He said his life was going nowhere.
Like, I never had any goal or anything to work for. Like, I didn't know where I was going.
No purpose in life, an endless circle of jobs and marriages and relationships, always failing and then always starting over again.
Yeah, I've been married twice. I first got married when I was 19 years old. Janet, my first wife, I'd been going out with her for a couple of years, and as a matter of fact, quite frankly, in the way of a girlfriend, she was probably the first girlfriend that I can actually say I had. And I got married to Janet basically out of insecurity. Like, already by the age of 19, I was starting to feel like ugly, like, and I felt like people were going to catch on to that. And I was thinking, like, things, you know, I wanted to be married, I wanted to have a family, and I thought, like, I better grab on just as soon as I can before people find out, because if anybody knows what I'm like, they're going to shove me off into a corner someplace, and nobody's going to want anything to do with me. We were married for, I think, 4 years, and we separated for almost 3. Got back together for about a year and a half or so, I guess it was, and until it finally ended. And like, one thing, when I came into Brentwood that I thought was no problem was my second marriage. That was really nice, solid, no problem. And like, I'd only been married, you know, 6-7 months, whatever. Not enough time to do a lot of damage, so I thought. Later on, as going through the program, and the wife and I started to get into some of these topics, I found out just how fed up she really was, and just how much I'd done to her in just a few short months. And like, I'm glad, really, in a way, that I didn't know that when I walked in this door, because it would have just been one more thing to worry about, and I'm glad I didn't have that.
One thing they did ask him to think about was his childhood. They tell us we become alcoholics at an early age, maybe 10 or 12 years old. So I asked him about his father.
We didn't get along at all, really. As a matter of fact, I'd have to say that 12 years old, the fact was that I started to hate my dad. I'd like a real hatred. He'd always been somebody who was just kind of around the house. But all I knew of him when I was growing up was for disciplinary purposes. It really didn't have anything to do with each other. And finally, at the age of 12, we had a little incident happen that I just started to hate him. And I held on to that for a long time. We've been kind of like at war for about 17 years.
I got the spare. Get the food out of my way. You're too busy on the camera. Get out.
Dennis Reno, age 25, no wife, no children, control operator in a processing plant. Heavily into drugs, 30 joints a day, also cocaine, also acid, also drug dealing. RCMP had him under surveillance. This guy was in a lot of trouble.
It got to the point where I was just closing myself in my room, and you know, I had just before I came in here, I had lost everything. A collection of limited edition prints, a boat, a new boat, a new motorcycle, a new truck. The progression was just so obvious, but yet I couldn't see it, you know, the things that I had lost.
This guy had lost 34 jobs since he was 17. He was a loser, even though he came from a good home and he's a smart guy. That pattern in his life, the losing pattern, stemmed from his lack of respect for authority.
When I was a kid, I guess I was pretty hard to handle, you know. I didn't listen very well. I didn't do too many things that they told me. I think that's the whole point. If I had listened to my father the whole time, I'd be okay right now.
When did you first know you were an alcoholic?
I never quite said to myself, I'm an alcoholic. I said, I have a drug problem. I never realized what an alcoholic was. I thought it was because of this empty feeling. You know what I thought it was? I thought it was because of the lack of schooling, and it made me inferior, made me feel inferior to these people who I had gone to school with, and I knew that they cheated through high school and through college, and yet they had a good job because of this diploma that they could show for it, and yet they weren't any farther ahead than me, I thought, as far as learning capabilities or schooling, you know.
Do you really feel that you are an alcoholic?
Oh, absolutely.
That means you cannot ever drink again the rest of your life?
Absolutely. I can't take just one.
Why not?
Because I take everything in excess, life in excess. That's part of the alcoholism, you know.
So what finally brought you to Brentwood?
Just a deterioration of my lifestyle, my life. I wasn't working. I had no money. I had moved back in with my parents at the age of 24, which to me I thought was a real regression. I had lost everything, you know, and I couldn't go a day without doing a lot of drugs.
The next few minutes are really important. If you think you might be an alcoholic, or your wife or your husband or your kids or your mother, father, somebody like that, we're going to try to show you what makes an alcoholic. You can drink a lot and not be an alcoholic. Or you can never drink. You could never have a drink in your life and be an alcoholic. It's true. It is true. And it doesn't matter how smart you are, how tall you are, how old you are, how healthy you are, nothing to do with it. How long you went to school, nothing to do with it. It's the way you are. And it's how you think about yourself. And it probably goes back to your childhood. Can you change it? Can you cure it? No. But you can learn how to handle it. You can learn to live the good life and still have this disease that we call alcoholism. Now, I don't know if it's really a disease. It's the best word they can think of so far. Are there germs? I don't think so. Can you catch it? I don't think so. But, I mean, don't quibble over the word disease. Someday they'll think of a better word, but that's all we have now. Psychologists call it a type A personality. Whatever you want to call it, you either have it or you don't have it. Father Paul Charbonneau, the director of Brentwood, calls it the alcoholic personality.
I mean, he's a very selfish person who thinks that being independent, doing things on his own, is the most successful, easiest way for him to do it. That's the way he's going to be happy, achieve his fulfillment. And it's the opposite, really, of what life is supposed to be. And he ends up really to be a completely selfish person. He never intended to be that way. And if he's completely selfish, then he really cannot find love or know it, have it, give it, or receive it. And that's really the disease of alcoholism as far as I see it.
Next to Father Paul Charbonneau, Sam Devon probably understands the alcoholic better than anyone at Brentwood.
It's a living problem. The alcoholic's had a living problem from the time he's 5 years old. It starts off with rebellion. It starts off with what you would call a spoilt brat. Never satisfied, never pleased, always in turmoil, always causing turmoil wherever he goes. Always unhappy, negative, never a positive thought in his head. Always controlling others with this type of behavior, whether it be in school or whether it be at play or hockey or whatever sport that he happened to be in. But always, always that turmoil there. Always trying to prove himself. Always trying to be accepted, never fitting in, never knowing why he never fit in. All of this going on inside of him at the same time. So what you were doing at a very early age was establishing emotions you couldn't share and things you couldn't do with other people that were normal. This became a walking time bomb. This kid just grew into this, and by the time he was age 14, it was full-blown, and so was he. He was a confirmed, dedicated alcoholic on a self-destruct course. And the only relief that he would have would be the drug, be it alcohol, Dilaudidins, Percodons, or whatever. He had to find some substance to get out of this miserable world he had self-created.
Every day at Brentwood is a school day, and every guy is a student of the disease of alcoholism. Father Charbonneau takes the symptoms of the disease one by one, because alcoholism, like any disease, has symptoms and warning signs, and explains them to us, and shows us how we hurt ourselves and other people. opens up our eyes to the things that we are blind to, and then gets us up to the microphone and makes us share with the other guys.
Hi everybody, my name is Charlie, I'm an alcoholic. Hi Charlie. I really justified this one, not letting anybody tell me what to do, because I could go and say, look, Children's Aid had me for 14, 15 years of my life. And they had me in this slave camp, and they had me over in this foster home, and they beat me half to death. So don't give me that stuff about anybody that's going to tell me what to do. Because when I was helpless and a kid, you know, they had their chance, and look what they done to me, you know. And it was poor Charlie. And my vow then was nobody was going to tell me nothing. I was going to do what I want, when I want it, and if that didn't suit nobody, well, that was fine.
Probably the word, that we use more than anything else to describe alcoholism and the problems that alcoholism creates is what we call self-will. The alcoholic, because of his insecurity, and he feels that he has to do things himself because he can't trust other people, everything then begins to revolve around himself, and he sees that his thoughts, his feelings, his way, his reasons are all important. They're the only ones that he can trust, the only ones that make any sense to him, and his whole life becomes revolved around himself.
We take everything so personal because we're so wrapped up with ourselves, you know, and we'd have these really violent or sudden reactions, powerful reactions, because we're so sensitive to our own feelings, and we took everything so darn personal. As a rebuff, as a rejection, as a put down, as an interference with my time, you know, as being mistreated. And the person meant nothing else. He wasn't even thinking of us. That was just one of the facts, the realities of that particular day at that particular time.
I had to say
The alcoholic is only secure when he's in control. When he's not in control, he's scared. And in most of life's situations, we're not in control. Somebody else is. And bad things can happen to us.
Situation. At 6 years old, I watched my father grab my mother, hold her under a scalding hot water tap, and I was in my pajamas. I ran out the door. I ran through the streets of the town, crying for help, knocking on doors, begging somebody to come and help me, somebody to save my mother. And that kind of fear had caused tremendous amounts of violence and rage that I lived with inside me. The happy-go-lucky front, the nicest guy you could meet until he got drinking. And I think an illustration of that was 5 years into my marriage, sitting in a bar one night. A fella come up and sat down beside me. We got talking about work, and as it happened, he worked at the same place my wife worked and had indicated to me that he knew her. 10 minutes later, allowing the thought that he knew my wife led me into thinking that he was seeing my wife behind my back. The insecurities, the fears for that 10 minutes drove me into a rage inside, a Jake LaMotta kind of rage. And within 15 minutes, I had come off the bar stool and punched him in the face and knocked him off the bar.
When we are so engrossed in ourselves, with our own thoughts and feelings, our own ideas, we are closed to any, there's no room in us for any other thoughts, any other way, any other feelings. Therefore, we're absolutely closed into ourselves, locked into ourselves, and we are not open to receive anything from anybody else, whether it's advice, whether it's love, whether it's anything.
Much like Pete, I grew up in an alcoholic home. There was many occasions I watched my mother get beat up and watched my father fall over. I remember a time pushing my father out of the bedroom because he wanted to beat up my brother, and he was so drunk. My other brother and myself pushed him out of the room and just watched him fall over, and my mother was crying, and I just sat there and thought, you know, is this what life is all about? So I guess by the age of about 12 or 13, I decided that I was no longer going to allow feelings to I was no longer going to allow myself to feel pain, so I just shut off to it as best as I could and buried it, and decided that the world owed me, and I was gonna go get what I could, And
I live my way.
It all comes back to control. Something happens, the alcoholic doesn't like it, he closes the door, shuts everybody out, and makes his own little private world where everything works, nothing goes wrong, and everything is perfect.
Everything has got to be like that little kid with that little circus and a little fantasy that the world goes on and everything's fine as long as you're doing the things I want you to do.
And everything has to go by the script. If there's an event coming up, let's take, especially one that I don't like, this Strauss ball that my wife wants to go to. I have to map that whole evening out to just exactly how it's going to go and how people are going to act in order for me to get through it. And it will completely throw me off guard as soon as somebody else doesn't act the way I've got it up in my head that it should be.
So the person with the alcoholic personality has to pretend he's somebody he's not.
They're ignorant of so many things. They would think that maybe they're a good father or a good husband, that they love, that they're responsible, and we try to show them that all this is pure fantasy.
I was convinced that I was an honest, trustworthy, respectable person. I really thought I was, and I thought I deserved all those things. And looking back, I found I did nothing to warrant those things. And that I was the only one who really believed that. I believed it. The people around me, they weren't that stupid. They saw the reality. They knew what was real and what wasn't, but I didn't.
When we come into a place like this, our ideas have been wrong.
Probably the characteristic of alcoholism that is the hardest for others to live with is self-pity. When we alcoholics don't get our own way, we get depressed, we start feeling sorry for ourselves, we blame other people.
We automatically go into self-pity, we hate it, we try to deny it, and therefore we try to camouflage it with anger, hate, resentment, revenge, and so on. These seem to be manly things, and we can seem to justify and brag that we have these things, but they're really a camouflage for the real disease underneath self-pity.
It's so hard to get out of feeling sorry for yourself. So many times not even aware that's what you're in, like anger and hatred as forms of self-pity. What do you mean I'm in self-pity when I hate this guy? And that took a while for it to sink into me that, yeah, they're right.
And all that anger and resentment builds up into the ultimate self-pity trip.
Altogether, they come up with 40% of all suicides are alcohol-induced. 40% of all alcohol taken is induced by alcoholics. Not that they want to make it, not that they want it to happen. What they're really doing is crying out. But by some damn mistake, they make it one day. Or people get tired of hearing it, so they walk away and they let them do it.
I actually planned to kill myself. It wasn't a spur of the moment thing. I planned it out, and I didn't like pain, so I went and I conned my family doctor, into several prescriptions. When I got home, I sat there and just took all the pills at the same time, took a couple of beers to wash them down with. I think I missed 2 pills, because I thought I was getting sick. And the next thing I knew is I woke up in the hospital, and my reaction right off the bat was just, oh shit, I gotta do it again. I spent a few weeks after that up in the psychiatric unit in Hotel Dieu Hospital, and I just made a farce out of all of that. At first I was very defiant, wouldn't cooperate at all, of course, and didn't care. And then I realized the only way to get out of the damn place was to give them the answers they wanted. So I gave them the answers they wanted, and I got out.
Your attention, please. Larry J. Louis, Scott Jackson, Dennis Neal to the main office.
The treatment for alcoholism is not medicine, it's not a doctor, it's not a hospital, it's another alcoholic. When a guy comes here, he's full of pain and fear and anger. What do? They give him another alcoholic. That's the treatment here. That's it. Talking it out with another guy. That's the medicine of Brentwood.
So when they enter Brentwood for the first time, they're not given books, they're not given literature, they're not given a Bible. They're given one other drunk, that's all. Just another drunk who, because of another guy before him, has learned how to share, has learned how to confide, has developed a trust, has confidence, has convictions, and has a deep-seated belief in what he's doing. Because he's experienced this feeling with that other person, he's able to convey that to the one coming in.
In the 13 weeks here, are you able to learn to forgive yourself?
Yeah, when you understand that the things that you did were part of your disease, that's what made you do it. And the forgiveness comes from, if you did a particular thing and you tell another guy and he says, yeah, I did that too. I forgive you. Do you forgive me? Do you feel any different about me right now? And I say, no. How can? Because I did the same. So the forgiveness comes, you know, and then you feel...
This is called a one-on-one. They do this day after day, week after week for 13 weeks. Different guy every day. They talk about things that happened yesterday and things that happened 20 years ago. Secrets that they thought they could never tell another human being. They get it out. They tell it. They share it. And they start feeling better.
When I got in here, people started telling me about this alcoholism, do what you're told. I couldn't swallow it for a while. All I know is I was desperate. I knew if I walked out the door, what would happen. So I hung on till finally I got a feeling from what an honest one-on-one was like. Boom. And for the first time, I felt like somebody opened up a trap door that was around my heart, and I had a feeling. And that's when I said I wanted it.
When Brad Brophy first came into Brentwood, he figured he would just kind of coast along. He didn't take this program very seriously. But something that happened in his first one-on-one changed all that.
Casual about it was an incident that had happened to him when he was 8 years old. And when he was 8, what had happened was, in a wooded area, he'd been raped. And he'd been taken home by the police, and the guy, I can't recall if the guy was ever caught or not, but he was so casual about the fact, like, you know, I was raped when I was 8 years old. Well, the problem was, like, boy, as soon as he said that, like, it was like my insides just drew back, and I thought, whoa. Like, first off, like, this honest stuff, okay, that's fine, but, like, whoa. The thing that really struck me was that I'd been raped when I was 8 years old. But I'd never told one soul because of the way it happened, and I had convinced myself at 8 years old that I couldn't tell anybody. Within hours of it having happened, I was convinced I couldn't tell anybody. They wouldn't believe me.
Last Christmas, down the hallway to the stairs, and I stood up, see fire like always. I did it.
Sharing the past with other people who've had the same problems creates a bond among the people of Brentwood and accounts for their strong feeling of fellowship.
The whole atmosphere or spirit of Brentwood is an absolute honesty with one another. And this is the only way then we can be honest with ourselves. I think that's the bottom line of Brentwood.
The fellowship at Brentwood is great, you know. We play baseball on Tuesday nights. We bowl on Thursday mornings. We have good time. You know, I'm really going to miss this place for that. That's what I miss the most, is having we're spoiled here. Having all these guys to talk to when you need them, to laugh with, to joke with. I never, ever believed before I came in here that I'd be doing some of these things. Just that night, and get the biggest thrill out of it. Having 2 or 3 guys in your room and just talking about normal things and laughing, and, you know, it's a really, the fellowship here is great, you know. The people see you down, you can't lie to these people. You come in and they say, what's wrong? And I say, nothing. What's wrong? I say nothing. Nothing's wrong. Don't lie to us. Tell us the truth, because they can see it. They know. They're just like me.
Brentwood is located between two railroad tracks. Whichever direction you come from, Brentwood's always on the wrong side of the tracks. Always a train going by. The irony of this whole business is that we're at the Elmwood Casino, where Jimmy Durante and Sophie Tucker sang and danced, and they serve drinks to half the people in North America. This is where Father Charbonneau runs the program. 200 guys, 13 weeks. Cost 40 to 50 bucks a week, depending on whether you're married or single. Nobody turned away. There is no waiting list. You come here, you're in the program. Very highly structured thing. Lots of rules. Started by Father Paul Charbonneau, who patterned it after the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous. He's a Catholic priest and the director of Brentwood. He's got two brothers and a sister, and his father was an alcoholic. He went to Assumption High School, where he was honorable mention all-city quarterback. He was ordained on May 22nd, 1948, and assigned to a series of parishes around Essex County. Then about 20 years ago, he went to Emeryville, where he started this whole business by counseling 7 alcoholics.
And, they would come to Father at the rectory. They would meet several evenings a week, maybe stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning, just talking to him about their problems. And that was how he got involved with the alcoholic. And he said that he only listened. He never really counseled. He only listened to them, for a year or more before he ever tried to counsel an alcoholic himself. He said because they just kind of counseled one another.
Kay Ryan and her husband Jim, who were parishioners of Father Paul's in Emeryville, said if you ever need us, call us. So we did. In 1964, together with those 7 alcoholics, they started Charity House, a storefront soup kitchen on Wyandotte Street. Father Paul wanted to teach the alcoholics that the way out of their problems was to help somebody else. That is page 1 of Alcoholics Anonymous. Plus, it did provide a place for hungry street people to get a meal.
They served 2 meals a day at Charity House, and these people just came from wherever they slept, in cars or wherever.
Various restaurants around town would donate leftover food. Steakhouse on Monday, Mario's Tuesday. The Elmwood Casino donated food 1 day a week. A year or so later, they moved a few blocks down the street to this place on Chilver, which is now Frankie's Dining Lounge. They had beds. Guys could now eat and sleep, but there was still no instruction. Then the government stepped in and said, why don't you start a full-time alcohol recovery program, try to cure these guys? He said, okay, but he needed a bigger place. He wanted to start it right here, but 3 guys from the Ministry of Social Services told him it wasn't suitable.
It was not like a house. It had to apparently be shaped like a house in order for it to work. And it wasn't shaped like a house. It was just a block building. We thought that it would be great to start it there because there was all kinds of room. And we fixed up bedrooms there, and we invited these people, 3 people from the ministry, to come and see what we had done. Well, they just almost laughed us out of the place, and they said, no way, you can't begin a recovery home here. It has to be a house.
So the next day she was looking through the want ads, saw a picture of this house, showed it to Father. He said no. She said, let's look at it. They did. He liked it, and they bought it. That was in 1974. And this is where the Brentwood program started. This is where I went through here. I lived here for 13 weeks. I lived in that room right there with 7 other guys. It was like a sardine in a sardine can. It's like living on a submarine. 67 guys lived there.
If the health department had ever come, they'd have closed us down because, we were really operating against the rules.
They were here 10 years, and then they had to get out. It wasn't big enough. So they looked around. He tried to get Holy Redeemer Seminary, but that deal fell through. But the Elmwood Casino was available, so once again, Kay and Father Paul went house hunting.
And we actually bought this place by flashlight. We had to go to the Sentry at the Darwin Plaza and buy 3 flashlights to look through it. There wasn't any hydro. The vandalism was like unreal. I just couldn't believe the vandalism. There wasn't a bathtub, a toilet, a fixture, a window standing. Everything had just been, well, it really looked like a bombed-out building. It really did. It was even worse than what Charity House was when we started there. And I said to Father, I just can't believe this. Like 20 years later, we're going to start fixing up another building. But I still had good feelings about it, that it would actually work. They
signed the deal on Thanksgiving Day, 1983, and then they went to work. The whole community got involved. Volunteers pitched in, the trade unions helped, electricians, carpenters, painters, plumbers. It ended up costing $2 3/4 million, and the doors opened on July 17, 1984.
Both the 6s, 66. Being a Pollen, 66.
This pays the bills. This is the room where Milton Berle and Sammy Davis Jr. used to dance and sing and tell jokes and yell at the bartender. Now they yell bingo.
47, 47. All the 2s, 22. Bingo's been called on 22.
The bingo hall pays 60% of Brentwood's operating costs. Another 20% comes from the community, and the government kicks in the rest.
By itself, number 9. 70, 70. Bingo call on 7.
The joke around Brentwood is that a man comes in addicted to alcohol and goes out addicted to bingo.
By itself, number 9. All the 1s, 11. 6 and 9, 69.
Brentwood is not like other institutions. They do not have a bunch of professionals on staff. It's not like a hospital. They don't give you a bunch of tests. Brentwood is run by alcoholics. Remember, that's the philosophy. What the alcoholic needs is another alcoholic to talk to. So everybody here, everybody that works here, is an alcoholic. It's like a nut house run by nuts. It sounds crazy, but it works.
Want some coins? Good evening, Brent.
When you come here, they give you a job. They don't say, what would you like to do, or what are you good at? They just fill a spot. So you're liable to end up doing a job that you're not great at and that you hate. But that's the plan, to teach you acceptance and to change you. Plus, it keeps the place running. Chances are that if you hang around here long enough, you could even end up on the staff. Because everyone here who is a counselor is an alcoholic. I know it's hard to believe that that would work, but it works. And that is straight Alcoholics Anonymous doctrine. They say that the only person who can help an alcoholic is another alcoholic.
I know that now when guys come in on the program, I work here now, and, I talk to them first as soon as I get on, and the first thing I try and do is make them feel comfortable, because I know the way they feel about themselves. I know how you felt, how Pete felt, how Bob felt. When we came in here, we just hate ourselves, and we just can't see how anybody else can like us. We can't see that there's anything good in us, we just don't believe there is.
11 o'clock meeting.
You already got us.
What?
Saturday special.
Where are you going?
Just to my place. I got to finish some walking.
Who are you going with?
I'll bring someone from here, son. Overnight, son.
Where are you going?
London.
With who?
Old friend.
Which friend? Ron?
Overnight.
If Brentwood was a high school, Sam Devon would be the vice principal. He goes around and enforces the rules and keeps everybody in line. He is an alcoholic. He knows all about it, and he's highly respected. He thinks he's had the alcoholic personality since he was 12 years old.
When did you come here?
And his insecurity and fear made him want to control everything around him.
A lot of havoc came out of that. A lot of the drinking, of course, was there. And the only relief that I ever felt was drink. And I drank for effect, not because I liked it, not because it was sweet, not because I liked scotch or vodka or gin. But I drank because of what it could do for me.
What did it do?
I can remember going on TV one time with, way back when Lindsay had a show, and I had taken some radio speech at one time at Wayne. I decided I'd go on with them. Prior to going on, I'll bet you I banged back about 16 dram breweries. And I went on there flawlessly because I looked at the videotape. I was completely relaxed and completely myself. And I thought, man, this stuff is magic. This is how you do it. All of these insecurities left. All of the anxiety was not there. All of the confidence was there.
Yeah.
False confidence or whatever it was, but it was there.
There are some very tough guys in this place. And I think the only reason they behave as well as they do is that they're afraid of Sam.
Hey, the meeting's still on. So knock it off.
I hope it's more respect than it is fear. I hope they see beyond. Somebody has to hit the self-will. Somebody has to crack it. And somebody has to be there that's not afraid of them, and not afraid of hurting them. Somebody has to be there that understands exactly what's going on. And I'm never far away from them.
He's rough on a lot of people in here, you know. But he is one of the main people who have saved my... I've been able to, you know, Father helps. He's just a little more distant than what Sam is. Sam is down here with us, walking around with us daily. And so you can grab, if you can grab him long enough and say, Sam, I'm really having a problem, can you help me? And he'll just throw a few words at you, and coming from Sam, it helps, you know.
Sam is, he's like living proof that this program works. I couldn't say enough about Sam for anything.
I notice you treat them all the same. Doctor, lawyer, factory worker, ditch digger, they're all alcoholics.
Yeah, they're all alcoholics first, and their professions come second with me. You treat the disease, not the person's station in life. You treat that person's heart, not his head. You're after the heart. I never met any bad ones. I haven't. Not today. I've met sick, and I've met some sicker than others, but I never met one that I disliked. Never. For the first time in my life, I fit in. I've always wanted to be something like this, that you were to become affected with people. I've never been able to find it. I've always wanted to be a priest. I'm not living out some damn fantasy in here, that's for sure. That went a long time ago. But I've never, ever, ever found anything as rewarding as this. Their respect to me, these guys here, you could give me anything you wanted from Rome or anything, or wherever, or the government. But I will take their respect over anything.
There are actually two Father Charbonneaus at Brentwood, Father Paul and Father Bob. Bob is Paul's younger brother, and a few years ago he came through the Brentwood program. He admitted he was an alcoholic. It's bad enough for you and me to say that, but for a priest to say it, I think it's a lot more humiliating and takes more courage, I think.
As far as drinking is concerned, I probably didn't take my first drink until I was about 32 years of age. And for quite a while, even when I came on program, I considered my alcoholic problem in relation to the time that I was drinking or the amount that I drank. But it didn't take very long to find out that that wasn't really the problem. Although the drinking had become a problem, it wasn't the real problem. And it's so obvious to me today that what was missing in my life, even though I wanted to be regarded as a good priest, available, helpful, interested, to give myself to others, I never once that I can remember allowed anybody to help me. And so there was this imbalance in myself as a person. And I got to a point that I wanted to be more and more by myself. I would arrange things in my parish schedule so I could be more and more away from people. And the more people I could get, say, in one sitting, then I would satisfy myself that I was serving people. But individually, trying to work with people, as time went on, the last, say, 15 years of my priesthood, I saw myself withdrawing, or I see myself now trying to withdraw from that, say, one-to-one, where it's going to demand a lot of giving of myself, my time, my convenience.
He remembers that when he was in the seminary, the rule was, don't form close friendships. Keep a distance from one another. Suppress your emotions.
That was exactly what I didn't need. I needed people. And the difference I find now, that the rule that should be followed is that people need people. Absolutely necessary. If there's going to be the growth, if we're going to follow that, be formed the way God wants each of his children to be formed.
Was it hard for you to admit to your parish and to the bishop and to your brother, Father Paul, who runs this place? Was that hard to do?
I admitted I was an alcoholic, and I remember very distinctly we were walking out in the parking lot at the parish, St. John Vianney Parish, where I was at the time. And he gently challenged me and just said, "You're an alcoholic." You know? You know Father Paul too. Right? Yeah. So I said, "Yeah." And then he said, "What are you going to do about it?" And to myself, I said, "Well, you bugger, you're the expert, you tell me." You know? So I just said, "Well, what do you think?" And he said, "Well, I want you to come to Brentwood." I said, "Okay." I said, "When?" That was a Saturday night. He said, "Monday." I said, "Okay." And I'm glad I did. One of the things that it's done for me is that ordinary people, as compared to, say, I'm a professional, I'm a priest, you know. I did not need other priest recovering alcoholics to help heal me. And it proved to me that every individual, no matter what their education or otherwise, or their history, every individual, all of us have the power to heal one another.
And
Brentwood recognizes that alcoholism is a family disease, so they have programs for mothers, fathers, wives, and children of alcoholics. Let's go back to the beginning. Who helps the alcoholic? Another alcoholic. So it makes sense that it works the same for the families of alcoholics. This is the youth group. It meets once a week.
My dad used to drink a lot, and he promised to do things with the family and stuff, and then he'd never end up doing it with us. And it used to hurt a lot, because all my parents ever did was fight at, like, a lot, especially on Friday nights. It was really scary. It was like, if you got in their way, they probably hit you or something. And you just sit there and watch them fight, and you say to yourself, "That's my parents fighting. Why are they doing this to me?" And then they just keep on doing it and doing it, and it kept happening until my dad came to Brentwood, because I guess my dad had a lot of problems with his disease, because he always used to, like, go out a lot and not come back. Like, he used to go out for like 3 or 4 days at a time, not come back. And then I'd say to my mom, "Mom, where did Dad go?" He goes, "Oh, he went to work," and I was only little. And then when he came home, he'd start yelling at my mom, and I'd get really scared. And then me and my mom would end up packing up and going to my grandma's or something.
We feel if we want to be ourselves, we have to be different. We have to find our own way.
Father Paul uses the expression, "we alcoholics," and he obviously knows a lot about it, but I'm still not exactly sure if he is an alcoholic or not.
Father Paul is not, in the strict sense, an alcoholic, but I would say that with his temperament, okay, in many ways his alcoholic personality was more intense, pronounced than mine was. But when he talks about we alcoholics, he is including himself.
I knew you 15, 20 years ago.
I would say...
I didn't like you.
I would say a miserable SOB.
You were.
Yeah, I know.
You were. I didn't like you at all.
You dirty dog. But that's true, you know. I instill a lot of fear in people, a lot of disgust, you know. I realized to a certain extent what was happening, but like any good alcoholic, I could justify it, and I guess I had to justify it, because it's pretty hard to live in guilt, you know, all the time, you know. Yes, there was something wrong, and I couldn't put my finger on it. But after working with the alcoholic, I began to see myself, you know, like them, and that's why I can easily say we and mean it.
We have a people problem. People seem to be a frustration. They don't seem to quite understand. They seem to get in my way. They seem to put clamps on my freedom or my life. Don't seem to look at things the same way.
What does Father Paul mean to you?
Well, he means, to me, would be trust. It's the first man I think I've ever trusted from the time I'm 14. He means respect. He's the first man I've respected since I was about 14 years old. He means love in the sense that he never takes things personal. He never has, in the number of years I've been with him, ever taken a man on a personal basis or held anything where that man could not come back here.
And he's fulfilled. You know, he stays here 16, 18 hours a day. That man, nobody could do that unless they loved it. And I believe he's happy doing this thing. As tiring as it is, and as much of it takes from him as far as emotions, he loves it.
He has the ability to forgive. He has the ability to understand. Now, by saying all that, some people might interpret that as a cult, or that I think of Father Paul as a god, and I don't. There's only one God, and he's not here on earth. And I think he understands that as well. In no way does he think he's on a pedestal above God or pretending to be him. And he hardly uses a language that goes with God.
Now, you are talking about a cake, or you're talking about a car, or you're talking about a table, you're talking about a wall, you're talking about a human being. How stupid can you get? A human being. You can throw anything into the pot and come out that perfect human being. Bullshit!
If you want to make Father Paul mad, tell him you're a nonconformist. He hates that word. He tells us that the way to freedom is to conform to other people's will. Don't do what you want to do. Do what your wife wants to do, your kids want to do. Conform to them. He says, you don't believe it? Just try it. Just trust me. Father Paul is a Catholic priest, but he's not shoving the Catholic Church down our throats here. What he is shoving, what this all around this place, is spiritual principles. The things we've been hearing all our life since we were kids. If you want good things to happen to you, do good things for other people. If you are good to other people, good things will happen to you. That's the spirit of Brentwood.
If you are basing your life on fear, on insecurity, on excuses, on dishonesty, on selfishness, on hate, and on resentment, on self-pity,
What kind of qualities are those? We call those defects. And so your plan of self, standing on your 2 feet, finding your own way, depending only on yourself, that was your blueprint. That was your philosophy. Did not develop strong spiritual qualities that your life should be based on. They developed defects, weaknesses. And you became deformed, not formed, deformed. And you have to experience the truth of this philosophy, the truth, the reality, that we are made in a certain way. We're all human beings, and we all need the basic formation. But the alcoholic, because he hasn't been able to develop along the spiritual or the human line, to become a person, to become that human being. So you can be that brother, that father, that husband, that friend, that person. And when that is not working, we're down in the dumps, we're upset, we're miserable, we're frustrated. Boom, and our work doesn't mean that much. Boom, we're not as qualified because we're miserable, and we're drinking, and we're upset, we're not there, but we're not interested in it.
What's going to take the place of drugs and alcohol in your life after you leave here?
People. The people here, you know. I never realized that. But in the Lord's Prayer, Father taught us that our daily bread, and this is something many people never knew, our daily bread is not what they put on the table or the money you make. It's the people that God puts in your life. And if you don't use them, well, then, you know, now that I've been taught this, I'd be pretty stupid, you know.
Now that heart has been totally freed. In a sense, this reborn thing is always hashed out in the papers. But what happens here is a rebirth, because that old person dies, and that new person is allowed to form. His attitudes have changed. His way of life is forming. He's accepting the will of God as he understands it. The people in his life, the love he has for his fellow man. That's a big thing. That's a freedom. Yeah. The freedom to love without reservation. The freedom to love without fear. The freedom to love without embarrassment. The freedom to give without weakness. The freedom is in knowing yourself and having conquered yourself in spite of the disease. and that's total freedom.
After 13 weeks, they don't just kick you out and say goodbye. They have a graduation ceremony every Saturday. A few days before that, Father Charbonneau calls the graduates into his office. He explains that the graduation ceremony is a commitment to Brentwood, and he encourages them to keep coming back.
I have to come back a lot. I'm going to take their direction and do what they say, because I realize that I can't run my life right now. Anyway, I don't know how to run my own life. So I'm going to listen to Father and the rest of the staff. The friendships that I've made here through the fellowship, they're so solid. It's unreal. In 13 weeks, I've made better friends than I've known people for all my life, and I don't know anything about them. And yet in 13 weeks, I know all about these people.
We all come in different states, all rough, and see guys like they came in and were really having a tough time, and they can stand up and they can see something in their future, and they can start taking those first few steps. And I think that's where the enthusiasm comes from, is in seeing the other guys in here do it. And that's also with the alumni, having them come back and sharing with us what's going on in their life, the good and the bad. Like, let's stay in reality here. It's not all roses afterwards. So, that I just want to especially thank the fellowship. Not just the ones that are still in the program, but all the ones that have gone through the program before. Because they're the ones who have helped me out and got me started, and it's just a start.
We always have deaths, suicides, accidents, and these things are part of everybody's life, whether here in Windsor or any other place in the world. We couldn't handle them. But to see the alcoholic or the families of alcoholics handling these things sort of in stride, and not running and covering up or avoiding, but even being part of the tragedies of the lives of other people, not just trying to, say, give them some money, but emotionally being able to enter into their sorrows, into their heartaches, and to sustain them, and staying with them emotionally until we help them to recover. That's the spirit.
And for me as a human being, it means I can only have spirit or life if I let other people nourish me. And where I used to be everything so much of a drudgery and a pain sort of thing, and I get tired physically, was because I wanted things my way. Now, it's getting more regular, more and easier to be there for people, for them, not for me, but for them. And I'm much more relaxed, and even physically, I have much more vitality. Yes, I'm alive today.
Brentwood is a place for people. It's not a drunk tank, it's a school. Not a nut house, not the last stop on the way to the cemetery. It's a place for people who want to change their lives. All ages, all colors, all kinds of people, doesn't matter. It's a model community. It's the opposite, it's the antidote to the me generation. It's men's liberation. All the leaders in history, the great leaders, St. Francis, Tolstoy, Gandhi, all started communities. There have always been model communities. In Windsor, we have Father Charbonneau and Brentwood. I've been happy to share this hour with you. If you'd like to come out sometime and have a cup of coffee with me, I'd like it. Call for us, because we're on a tight schedule here. This is Bob Monks, and I'm an alcoholic.
To give to them what I've received, the center of love from a family tree. Time is short and on your side.